Hey, welcome to this timeline jumping Q&A support. And thank you, Sumari, for showing up. Fantastic. So many of you by now are at your second month. Maybe some of you are a bit past your second month of doing the timeline jumping course and right through to week 9 at this point. And at that point, you can, at the very least, wear all 4 DNA codes either inside your pockets, or for even more convenience, do what I've been doing since February 2020, so 3 years, which is tape them to the soles of your feet and then put your socks over it. And, two codes of the DNA codes on either sole. And if you haven't tried that yet, I'd strongly recommend it. It seems to have an even more direct impact. And ever since I started doing that 3 years ago, I've never looked back. It's one of those things. I've recommended this before, but I want to remind everyone about and encourage everyone to really give this a go for a week and see what it does to your energy system. Okay. It'll affect people a little differently. For me, like I said, I didn't need to use that super duper nootropic. That's was apparently made for the Black Ops community by Emery Smith. I didn't need it. It does seem to provide more of a charge. And it just gives you a boost, not just, heal, clear, and activate more and more DNA. And by activate, just to be clear, we have to differentiate its activation of the higher non-physical strands that connect to your higher dimensional aspects on a per strand kind of basis, as I've explained. It doesn't necessarily mean physical gene activation. Our physical DNA is, for all intents and purposes, activated. There's just a lot of genes, which are individual segments of DNA. A lot of them are deactivated. And that's a bit of a different matter altogether. It's not the same thing as higher non-physical strand activation, which is what, people are referring to when they're talking about DNA activation. There's that higher strands, higher non-physical strand activation, and as opposed to physical gene activation. Those are two obviously very closely related, but not the same things. So keep that in mind and have a go at either wearing all 4 codes in your pockets. Obviously, most women tend to wear clothes that don't have any pockets. My wife's a particular culprit with that. So yeah, tape them to the soles of your feet. Really give that a go. And there's all sorts of skin-friendly tape that you can get. I use kind of like an elastic, skin-colored kind of a tape. That's totally fine for the skin, because some of us are just sensitive with our skin, with sensitive in general. And it can produce a bit of a irritation on the skin for those of us who are sensitive, which is typically around half of us. So yeah, there's skin-friendly tapes out there, at your local pharmacy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open things up now to questions, direct questions and support. And while we're still a small group, take advantage of that, because soonish, I'm going to promote the timeline jumping course again in a few weeks, and there'll be a lot more people on. So certainly make the most of this. All right, Michelle K. Will the DNA activation codes provide any protection against mRNA nanoparticle garbage that is now being placed in the food supply and the environment? I can only go on my own experiences with that and say yes, because although the spike protein is a bit of an issue and you get foggy headedness and that kind of thing because it screws with blood circulation mainly and promotes things like stroke in a lot of people. With the exception of the spike protein, nanoparticle garbage like mRNA, it does seem to, because it hasn't affected me. I go out and do my own shopping, so I'm with people at least twice a week. And yeah, can't say it's affected me. So based on myself as a case study, the answer is yes, they do provide a form of protection. I wouldn't say they directly protect your DNA, but they sort of resist the energies that flow through the codes. They seem to resist whatever the mRNA tries to do in terms of altering the codes and instructions received by your DNA. There seems to buffer against that. So that's my short answer. I can only go on my own personal experience. I still have a certain amount of fatigue, but that's because of so-called dews or weapons. Because, we're not liked very much. But I digress, that's a whole lot. I don't want to go into a whole other topic there. So no, I mean, yes, they do provide a level of protection. Just because of my own personal experience, it doesn't seem to have affected me, and I got 11/11. So yeah, reasonable question, Michelle. But do wear them, okay? To do wear them at a minimum in your pockets. My recommendation is, again, if you're at the end, reached week 9, I think it is, wear them on the soles of your feet, 2 on each feet. You may need to go that far in order to provide any real protection from the mRNA nanoparticles that, yes, they are trying to spread through whatever means they can possibly come up with, because their vaccine program is a failure from their perspective. So, yeah, do wear them if you can. All right. Let me see here. So once again, you can type in your question if you want, or just look for the reactions icon at the bottom or at the top on your device. Click on the large raise hand. So you can do that as well if you like. And, well, let me take a drink before I get into something else. We have to remember the circumstances or backdrop of what we're all going through what the planet is going through. And that tends to cause sort of a fair bit of upheaval, no matter who you are, pretty much, no matter what you do. Yes, you can do healing and clearing to get back on track whenever the upheaval gets too much, but upheaval and a certain amount of chaos and change, transition, that's always hard on most of us. Very chaotic in nature. We're all being stretched, as Laurie Ladd puts it. Quite a talent, that lady. And most of you here are 144K members, so you know what's been happening with the etheric plane most recently. And although that's a dramatically good development, I remember that the day before, Cobra had posted that huge update. It was a rather unpleasant day for friends as well. Extremely unpleasant day. This is Wednesday, last Wednesday that just went, because Cobra posted that great news on Thursday. So whenever there's a huge breakthrough on the non-physical planes, there's the proverbial and temporary kick up, extreme anger and extreme attacks, as all the bad non-physicals are exposed, forced out, and they attack, and their homes are gone, their hidey holes are gone, chased out, so the swamp drained, and they're up and out and about because their homes are gone, so they just target the brightest thing around. And that's what happened on Wednesday when the etheric plane finally, I wouldn't say, well, it was 99% liberated, 99% cleared. So huge breakthrough. Most of us who know about it are almost ecstatic over it. We were overjoyed on Thursday when we got updated. But that Wednesday was rather unpleasant, especially Wednesday night. Extremely bad day. And it's all them. It's all the non-physicals that caused that, because of their massive defeat. And this is the kind of thing that's happening not even every month, almost every week at this point, ironically, because of our success, because of the success of the light forces having such huge breakthroughs. So, these aren't normal circumstances, far from it, and don't fret if you're struggling, no matter what you do, no matter what healing and clearing you may be doing, because it's a collective thing. Everyone's going through it. It's just the nature of these times, severe detox of the times. And hopefully after the solstice, things can finally calm down when, there's I suppose, an expectation that after the solstice, all non-physical planes, namely the subquantum field, okay, or hyperspace field, so the spaces, that space or void in between time spaces, hopefully they'll be cleared after or by the solstice. And then, we won't be getting these crazy upheavals. Any upheavals will start to manifest even more on the physical, which is fine if you're okay energetically, which theoretically we will be, because all the non-physical planes and subspace, or the subquantum field, is cleared. So, another way to put it is don't take things personal. Let me see. Harold. Will the mRNA affect the results from med beds when they come out? No. Also, I had a dream where a black living goo entered my skin. All right. So that black living goo was inserted into you during your SSP super soldier days. That can be removed, but you do want to go up to the teams to get their support and surgically remove it. And then do a soul fragment retrieval back at that event, that time-space event where they inserted it. Okay. Because most of us have got non-physical versions of that kind of thing. I suspect yours is physical, but it can still be removed. More importantly, retrieve that soul fragment that experienced that trauma back when it was first inserted into you. All right. You can just see it from a safe distance and just do that. And med beds, they just alter the quantum, let alone molecular structure of anything and everything based on source. They're all got little portals direct to source that runs the whole thing. That being a quantum system. So it's a far more superior technology than the mRNA, which reminds me of, I think I heard that it's alien grey technology. I can't remember the specific name of that particular negative greys. But I do know, they're taller ones, not short. And I do remember many, many years ago, I did a soul fragment retrieval from God knows which past life, off-world, where, they put me, it was a pain chamber. They put me on one of those, like in the morgue, how they slide out those big drawers that hold the corpse. Okay. And then they slide him back in. That kind of thing is what it looked like. And so, yeah, as you can imagine, definitely need to get myself out of that one. Okay. As for med beds themselves, this is getting slightly off topic, I suppose. Summer Parks said they're going to do a very small, quiet, soft launch in the UK this summer and see how the Matrix responds to it. See how people and society responds to it. And then they're going to take that information and assess things and use it on to show them how to proceed forward with the rollout of the med beds. Okay. Again, most of you subscribe to Cobra here. So the thing about getting access to things like med beds is, certainly for most of us, the physical biochips need to be removed. Okay. The DARPA quantum mainframe computer needs to be taken over or shut down, whatever. Otherwise, if you're invited, MI6 in the UK, MI5, FBI and CIA in the and to a lesser extent NSA in the US, that they still have their goons. So if they get notified through the biochips, and respective quantum mainframe computer and DARPA, if those three-letter agencies get notified that this person is being taken to a med bed, okay, you might be in a spot of bother, to put it mildly. So once the physical biochips are either shut down or removed, or that whole mainframe network quantum system is taken over by the positive AI, then it'll be safe to go to a med bed. Then don't be surprised if sometime as early as this year, you get a notification in one way or another, or an invitation to a med bed. Okay. So as with everything, it's all sequencing, one thing before the other or after the other. And, it's just another classic case of disarming and removing assets of the bad guys. So yeah, the mRNA has no hope against the medbed, as in the real medbed. Obviously, there's a few things out there that sort of hijacked the name, Admittedly, one talented guy who ended up doing that, I know personally. Anyway, so any other questions? Otherwise, you can ask me to talk about whatever you want me to talk about. Oh, cool. All right. Nice long one here. Miguel. All right. Let me see here. Miguel, after our last meditation, I felt mostly blocked during the process. I did a decree, violet flame over the meditation was over. When I finished after an hour, I had a perception of crystalline energy waves around me and vital mind. Is this normal at this time? Just tell me what you mean by vital mind. Maybe you misspelled that. Just add the correct word for that in the chat. I had a perception of crystalline. All right, first of all, after our last meditation, I felt mostly block during the process. The etheric plane wasn't clear by then, so it might have been etheric interference or interference from those physical biochips. Okay, because they emit a magnetic field, which screws with the magnetic field of your third eye. But there's been so many forms and types of interferences from different planes, it's sort of hard to say whether it was the physical biochips or just something from the etheric plane. All right, so when you finished after an hour, after the meditation, I assumed you had the perception of crystalline energy waves around you. That would have been ET help from a non-physical plane. Now, sometimes certain natural things finally make it through the grids of Gaia. It could have been that as well. But crystalline energy waves around you obviously means something came through, made it through as a result of the mass meditation, where we cleared so much of the etheric plane and undoubtedly quickened the process of liberating the etheric plane. Also, I was shown 2 big cavities in my third eye, one in the right and the other on the left. I saw strings of this black material coming through in my mind. Okay, so the moment you see something like that, immediately turn it white. In other words, start transmuting it. be the natural psychic surgeon that we all are. All right. And just seize on the opportunity once you see something. Very important. And just transmute it on the spot, or transmute and sort of pull it out at the same time, kind of thing. I do it like that sometimes. I saw strings of this bone were coming through my mind. Is this that way? They infiltrate our minds, and if so, will this be stopped once all subquantum anomaly is cleaned up? Yeah, because that's undoubtedly not non-physical. The subquantum anomaly, I would say yes, such things will be stopped for the collective, but for you, you can clear them now. Okay, you don't have to wait for all of the non-physical and subquantum field to be completely cleaned out. You can clear them out of your head right now and don't put up with it. In last Soul Fragment Retrieval, after I went to be, I had an experience that found myself in emotional scene of a pedophilia record. During that moment, a guy was being beaten and running away from guards. Run into my direction. I blocked it, I felt that was a trap to bring the energy in my consciousness. Volatile, I see. Lightheaded. All right. That may even be present current incarnational stuff in either my labs or MK Ultra. And okay, so maybe I'm going to assume that you retrieved yourself out of there. If you haven't, go back and make sure, well, you don't even have to go back because you've already know that time-space event. You can just make sure you've retrieved yourself out of there, and I think do a soul fragment on that guy that was running away from the guards, so obviously trying to escape and running into your direction. Retrieve him out of there as well, partly because he may have courted you. It's not so much a trap per se, but you are entrapped or trapped in that time-space event that's affecting your soul, your vibration now. So make sure him and yourself are retrieved out of that. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like current incarnational My Labs or MK Ultra type stuff there. Okay. Yeah. So I never had records of that in my past revelations. So we don't remember our biggest and deepest traumas for the sake of being able to get on with life, at least to a degree. You can never really get on with life. But yeah, it's good that you're discovering things that you never realized before and had no clue about, in spite of doing so much internal work, probably for decades. It's good that you're seeing this now, because it means, you're getting there. You're all the stuff that was, I don't know, covering up the deeper, darker stuff has been cleared. So now you're finally getting to the deeper, darker stuff, and you're in a strong enough position to be able to heal and retrieve those deep and dark stuff. So it's good development. Again, just maintain, I suppose, a certain amount of discipline of remembering to, transmute whenever you see something. And quite often, yeah, it does happen on the fly, or when you're doing a simple meditation. Make sure you retrieve those soul fragments. And sometimes, especially if there's a companion of some kind, or former family member or something like that, sometimes you need to retrieve their soul fragment as well, because you were all ported up together or had a shared experience, or an unconscious vow or curse was made by one of you regarding the other, and that kind of thing, to avoid this sort of thing repeating in your current life and future lifetimes. So yeah, that's why you've never had such records in past revelations, as you put it, because they were too deep and dark. But now you can do it. I did a lot of calls against pedophilia to save the children in my last 10 years. Okay, good on you. I really salute that. If you're involved in that in some way, shape, or form, let alone if you're a victim of pedophilia yourself, again, get yourself out of there, retrieve that soul fragment of yours. And it sounds like you're in a position to retrieve the soul fragments of other children. Okay. That's the best way to save the children. Okay. In terms of what you can do right now. Could that be a retaliation for these calls? Retaliation is not the best word for it. It's non-physical resistance is a better word for it. And because these dark non-physicals that are feeding off of these traumas of you or children, they don't want to lose that energy, the so-called loosh. So transmute them, retrieve all the soul fragments. Okay, whether it's yours or other children. All right. Especially if you had some kind of close relationship with these other children. So yeah, get yourself out of there. So go ahead and raise your hand or type in your question if anyone else has any questions. Let me see. I was planning on experimenting with putting the implant removal code on my eye covers at night, because when you sleep at night, it's important to sleep in complete visual or physical darkness. And I was planning on putting, implant removal code, taping that onto the middle of the eye covers there, or maybe one on either side, a little higher, to help remove or quicken the removal of the physical biochips. And you can put an implant removal code on your navel for the navel physical biochip, okay? Because anything physical, while anything non-physical, we can remove fairly easily. When you project your consciousness from the physical to the non-physical, you can, you do have godlike powers, as I've said in the past, and you can just remove them. No big problem. Physical, from physical to physical, again, different animal. And we all have the power to undo and or alter the molecular structure of physical things as well, spoon bending being the classic proof of that. So if you know how to do spoon bending, which I don't, by the way, you can have a go at removing those physical biochips. Okay. And I know, Harold, you're certainly capable of that sort of thing as well. So once you get rid of that, what appears to be physical AI goo, once that goes one way or another, you'll be able to do it and have that no longer screwing with your life and everything that you try to do. Then you're more likely to be able to actually utilize your mostly dormant powers. Okay. But yeah, with you, get rid of the black goo first. Okay, and retrieve that soul fragment. Because when you retrieve a soul fragment and it's something physical, you're dealing with something physical, even one of two things happens. It either solves a given problem directly and pretty much straight away, or it puts you on the timeline, on a higher timeline where that past event never happened. Okay. So you just quote unquote magically stumble across some kind of a 3D physical resource that gets rid of it for you, kind of thing. And thus end up on the timeline where it never happened. And where they never inserted that physical AI goo in you. Because I know in the Dark Fleet they drink it. You know what I mean? With you, it might have been forced upon you or made to drink it under duress, whatever. So yeah, you really got to heal those horrible time-space events. Okay, and that then alters the timelines and opens everything up for you in terms of options and solutions. So that's how it happens. It's always, even with the horrible chronic problems, it's always the starting point. Soul fragment retrieval type work. That's always a starting point in setting about ascending to that timeline where it just resolves one way or another. Your body, your system, your higher self will find whatever excuse for something to just disappear, dissipate, clear out. In some cases, even forget about it. Okay. So you know what to do next in terms of your starting point, Harold, and all those things that were put into you, inserted into you during your super soldier days. Just focus on healing those, retrieving yourself out of those. In terms of soul fragment retrieval, always a starting point. Okay. Okay. One more sip of the old chicory. Now, because so much, especially this past, well, really since most of this year, we've had so much huge breakthroughs, long-awaited breakthroughs on the non-physical planes, the mental plane, the causal plane, this plane, the astral plane, etc. So much mass clearing that the detox effect on all of us, yeah, that's been hard. The massive resulting influx of life that's forced us all to grow a certain way does scare the adult mind and the false persona. I'm not going to use the word ego because that's got all sorts of false connotations to it. But the adult mind is threat to the familiar, the comfortable, and status quo. That's been really stretched, really been pushed forward because of the influx of light. We've got to remind ourselves that influx of light, as great it is in the long term, in the short term, or when it first initially happens, that the lofty dreams and ideals around it, certainly the loftiness disappears pretty quickly. All right. So just be as gentle, calm, and peaceful on yourself as you can because of these physical and non-physical detox. The physical dark ones, the cabal, they're trying even harder to do whatever they can, to kill us all. So there's this opposing sort of forces of natural and unnatural, dark and light, and we're sort of in the middle, being squashed like a sandwich. So it's not going to last long. Okay. Now, my goal is to make things, let's just say, a lot nicer and stable by July, because from around the solstice and new moon, or shortly after that, there's an expectation that the subquantum field will be cleared, and that'll, just before that happens, or as it happens, is going to be another big, shall we say, outflux of nastiness. So we might cop it for another 24 hours before they're all taken up or cleared, or the dark ones that are hiding in the subquantum field, because that's all they got now, pretty much. So what happened this last Wednesday and Thursday, it may happen one more time, hopefully no more than one more time, at around the solstice or just after the solstice, as the subquantum field gets cleared. And again, don't be too disheartened or horrified by it. Keep yourself as clear as possible. It does help. It does make a difference. Don't be disheartened by any further upheaval we may experience in June. It just means we're heading in a far better direction, the right direction, quicker. Okay, so yeah, everything will be fine. Yeah, it's not easy, but detox, physical or non-physical, releasing physical or non-physical, is rarely easy. Unless you're damn good at transmuting. It can all be done in half an hour, which is what the Soul Fragment Retrieval is designed for, So do make sure you use it when emotions get a little out of hand, or with something. Well, the symptoms are varied. I won't go into it again too much, but when an emotion or a physical symptom comes out of nowhere and it tends to hang around like a bad smell for days, that's when and transmuting the identity here, Epsom salt bath or whatever, doesn't seem to be doing the trick, only provides marginal improvement. That's when you have a soul fragment retrieval to do. Okay. So always keep that in mind. Be disciplined with that. It's really worth it. And it's not uncommon for one's emotions to really go awry, to really lose composure, or almost like having a nervous breakdown. That's happened to me, and you see something, that's not really much of a big deal on the internet, on a video. I was about to say TV, on the internet, and it causes you to have an even bigger sort of nervous breakdown when normally it wouldn't. That's a soul level issue. That's soul fragment retrieval. Don't put up with it. Go up and take care of it. You have the power. And I've been there lots of times, especially
over the past, well, since 2010, basically. All right. We're coming close to the top of the hour. Any last questions? If not, I'll give one more rather important little recommended training. Although it's not much in the way of training, it's actually, I don't know, just an important kind of exercise. One thing to do is, I suppose in some respects, the most important thing is a clear connection with your guides or whatever positive non-physical you're working with. Okay. One thing you'll want to do as kind of like a break from it all as well, as a kind of meditation, is to go to one of either your guides or the Gamalgam, whoever, and just be with them, sit with them, see them standing in front of you, and just go into a deep, theta state, deep meditative state with them just in front of you, and just allow yourself to go into that deep brainwave state where you're starting to lose consciousness or having trouble maintaining consciousness, and but maintain that semi-sleep state or deep theta state where you're still lucid. You know how when you're having a dream and then you wake up enough to where you realize that you're having a dream, okay, and you're now the conscious witness within that dream. That's the lucid state. Try to get into that lucid state by kind of losing yourself in that now moment with that positive light being that you've gone up to. And that's really helps with two-way communication. Okay. It really helps them communicate with you and you actually receive what they're saying. Although it's more like a thought of theirs that you're reading, it's more like that. In that lucid state. And just do that for 30 minutes or even an hour. And really lose yourself in that sacred time space, in that sacred non-physical but perfectly real time space. It's a good idea to do that once a week as well. It really exercises parts of the brain and builds new wiring and whatnot on working with the non-physical, and builds your connection even better. All right. But it's sort of not work. It's more of a relaxing thing at the same time. Okay. Make your favorite beverage, tea or coffee, and go up. Well, not coffee for most. You'd probably want something like chamomile, I suppose, or St. John's wort. Give that a go. And you can listen to one of those brainwave entrainment audios that puts you into a theta state. You can listen to one of those if that works for you. Okay. Especially if you have a struggle with ADD. You can do that as well. Nice to hear from you, Zoe. Any suggestions for a process you could do when you're experiencing brain fog or lack of ability to concentrate? The standard process is check for an entity that's either causing it or agitating pre-existing fatigue in the head. Brain fog, that's fairly common these days for various reasons. One is physical and non-physical detox, for the right reasons, I guess, with the planes and our non-physical assets being cleared. The other is if you've just been out and about running an errand, there's a very high probability you would have copped a bit of a shed, a vaccine spike protein shed. And that always causes brain fog. For that, I recommend MMS, which I've recommended before. Miracle Mineral Solution, just the universal antidote. Type that into Rumble. And take something, whether it's nitric oxide supplement or Umzu. They're all over YouTube these days. That's the name of the company, Umzu, UMZOO. And they have a great blood circulation product called Redwood, I believe. And they're my recommendations. So it's both a physical and non-physical complementary recommendations with brain fog. The brisk walk around the block, don't underestimate that. That's pretty good. But I would start with those things I've just prescribed in that order. Okay. And Zoe, I'm pretty sure you'd be on top of all of those things. Okay. I would recommend you start taping all 4 DNA codes to the soles of your feet. Just cut them up. I cut a little curve on the corners, all 4 completely separate. Tape along the edge of each one. That skin-friendly tape, and give that a go. That'll really help you as well, Zoe. Okay. All right. Last question for the day. Unless you have an urgent one, you can still ask one. But other than that, this will be the last one. Question. These dark strings are the ones that makes me have the emotional dreams. Yeah, because negative entities do that. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Whenever you see it, transmute the effing thing. Don't put up with it. These are really nasty critters. Don't put up with them. All right. Makes me have emotional dreams. So I have blocked them by grounding myself. Good. But you'll want to transmute as well. I block them, grounding them myself because I think they hurt me. Yes, I do. So should I not block them and let them run to heal and free myself? Well, I thought you meant block them as in block them from affecting you. You seem to be implying block them from letting them run. Don't even let them run. Transmute them. And I'm saying that not for practical solution purposes. I'm saying that because we're here to transmute dark to light. We're here to do that. That is at the core or at the basics of all of our soul purpose. And it is hard to be happy if we're not doing that soul purpose, at least not on a permanent basis. Okay. Melody jumped in. Good to see you, Melody. I have blocked them, grounding because I think they hurt me, so I not block them and let them run, heal myself. I also had this experience of a military guy. That's a My Labs dead giveaway. I also had this experience of a military guy was almost every day in my dreams. He was probably your handler back in My Labs. I'm sure you know what it's like, Harold. I didn't understand what he wanted. In my last dream I had with this guy, I asked him to forgive me, and I had forgiven him long ago. If this dream continues, should I also do a soul fragment retrieval on this guy? Yes. Okay. One thing you could do is transmute him, just in case it's a negative non-physical inserting itself into your sleep state and presenting himself as this military guy that you may have some kind of a sentimental past attachment with. You know what I mean? Transmuting. And if he's just a regular dude, real flesh and blood guy that was with you in My Labs, then, and not necessarily dark, then there's nothing to transmute. Okay. In that case, then do a soul fragment retrieval on him as well. Okay. Now, generally, or sometimes soul fragment retrievals on others is not allowed by their respective higher selves because of the whole interference thing that you're generally not allowed to do. But here's the but. If in whatever way his presence or him is interfering in your ability to perform as a starseed, as a planetary liberator, as it relates to your sole purpose to help liberate the planet, there is a kind of, I don't know, authorization that is given to interfere with someone else's life path if their life path is interfering with your ability to participate in planetary liberation, because planetary liberation comes first. That's the thing that's escalated above all else. All right. So if you're an active participant in planetary liberation, you do have a comparative higher level authority, is the best word I can use, to do things you normally wouldn't be able to do under normal circumstances. But we're not under normal circumstances. We're operatives, we're agents, just like in the military and just like in wartime. When a national emergency is declared or wartime is declared, you know, whoever's waging that war is able to do more, has more powers to do this, that, and the other to win the war. You know, so like, for example, War Powers Act, whenever it's announced, it allows that given political leadership to temporarily or effectively nationalize certain companies for the war effort, for example. You know, so they have more authority to do things when they normally otherwise wouldn't or couldn't. So yeah, do a soul fragment retrieval on that guy and on your guy. And by the way, I remember George Cavasilla said he remote viewed a super soldier training camp that was off the coast, I believe off the west coast of Costa Rica, which, if I remember correctly, that's where you are. I don't know if it's Puerto Rico or Costa Rica where you are, Miguel, but there is a super soldier base, or was a super soldier base off the west coast of Costa Rica. And you even live there or thereabouts. So it's all related. Just, yeah, retrieve away, so to speak, and transmute away. All right. Now, in your dreams, the military guy visiting you in your dreams, you know, I mean, he could be remote projecting himself into your sleep state to try to communicate with you. Okay. For either good or bad reasons, hard to say. But transmute him anyway, retrieve both yourself and him out of there. Okay. So even if he's there with good intentions, it'll clear the space and it'll be able to get through to you if it's for a higher good reason. Otherwise, you simply could be, some form of past trauma is simply up to be cleared. Okay, it could mean that as well. Either way, you still have to do the same thing. Transmute him, and if there's nothing to transmute, then do a soul fragment retrieval on yourself at a minimum. All right. Hi, Melody. Hi, Jim. I have not done with the ICB as often as I have not been sleeping as well and would have difficulty staying awake during the ICB process. Understandable. Okay. I cheat. I have a coffee. Okay. Because when it's your own stuff, you're technically doing surgery on yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah, it is harder, but boy, it's the most empowering thing when you're able to do it. Because then you can just keep on doing it whenever stuff comes up without having to pay money and wait for the schedule of some healer who may not always do the full holistic form of clearing. It really is worth it. It's so empowering. So, all right, there could be all sorts of reasons for that. There's always resistance from the non-physical around a given block or issue or trauma, a soul fragment issue. You're going to get that resistance. They're going to persuade you to not do it by making you feel tired, or you're too. They say to you, you're too tired. So sometimes transmute an entity or two, make the coffee, get into that meditative state as you're doing all that, as you're drinking your coffee, go for a brisk walk around the block if you need to, and then come back, have your room ready, curtains closed, come back from the walk, quickly finish your coffee and go up. All right, try that. It's all resistance. It's all bullshit. Just don't put up with it. Was wondering, how do we get or inspire people around us to somewhat be able to start taking responsibility for their healing too, instead of doing it for them? It sounds like you have a friend or two that may be pulling on your energy. Okay. They're awake and aware, sort of, but they're not really doing the work. They're doing their internal work. And we have friends that aren't really doing their internal work, partly because they don't know, they haven't seen the timeline jumping webinar, for example. So it's harder for them to get it. All right. So you don't worry about them. Only worry about yourself in terms of the serious internal work. You can make a recommendation, but don't waste your time and effort any further than that. All right. Make sure you've decorded yourself after speaking with a friend who's struggling because they're not doing their internal work or that kind of thing, or even if they're not complaining and they're just going on about nothing and just sucking your time and energy. Okay. Obviously, I'm talking from experience, right? Once you hang up the phone or deleted their email or text, make sure you do a quick verbal revocation, as we call it. All right. It's in the 144K Patreon members. Verbal revocation. You want to do that once or twice a day after interacting with people, after you're back from the shops, whatever. Because that can make you feel tired or not feel right at all. All right. Other than that, don't worry about them. It sounds like they need a bit more education. So maybe you can recommend the, let me bring it up, the timeline jumping webinar link. Okay. Because a lot of people, they got a strong sense of spirituality, the non-physical planes, healing, but I don't really know what soul level healing really is in that real technical sense. They don't really know. They don't really know the real brass tacks forms of healing and clearing, So I suspect chances are they need just a bit more of the right kind of education. So I hope that helped, Melody. It's like in the aeroplane with the oxygen mask. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then whoever else second. Miguel, I was born in Mexico, West Coast, and this guy showed sign of a reptilian being. All right, then transmute the effing thing. All right. And do a soul fragment retrieval on yourself in that so-called dream. All right. Reptilians, there's reptilians that are conscious that they're reptilians and they're in human bodies and they're sort of naturalized because many of them have been here since Atlantis. Transmute away. All right. We're almost out of the dark. Very soon. All we're going to have to worry about is physical dark ones. And although some of them can project their consciousness in the sleep state or whatever, that can be dealt with. You just transmute the effing things. All right. And, yeah. Primarily comes back to soul fragment retrieval. All right. Primarily. For the most part. But don't forget the simple things. Transmuting an entity, closing a little black hole somewhere in your body, being a portal. Making sure your chakras are running right and are fairly clear so that you don't get tired from not enough chi. Okay. The usual things like that. Check those as well before doing a soul fragment retrieval. Thank you, Jim. I will try transmitting the entities and see how it goes. Yeah, play around with it. Definitely. It's our new daily practice. It's our new kind of lifestyle, at least for the next few months. And that's why I'm so excited. We just got, the etheric plane, which was quite the big Megillah, I can tell you. More so than the other planes, in my opinion. That's 99% cleared. We just got the subquantum anomaly, the subquantum plane, the subquantum field to go. Then I'm pretty excited about that. Even though it'll still be rough as we clear that. I would like to take some coffee too, but have to abstain it to some degree too. Yeah, I understand. I do the same thing. I have coffee twice a week before an energy session. I make sure I go to the Gamalgam once a week. I make sure I go to the HOD once a week. Right, that's twice a week. respectively. I have 1 coffee just for those 2 sessions per week, and that's it. Okay. So I get my coffees at 2 times a week, only for energy work, or the real deal energy work. So yeah, you definitely don't want to take it every day. Yes, thank you, Jimmy. It makes sense. Do you mean the revocation from the Patreon post? Yes. Yep. And let me know if you can't find it. You just got to scroll down a bit or go through the history. One thing that I've used to substitute coffee with is raw cacao. Raw cacao doubles up as, I mean, it's a goddess thing where her energy is there as well, and she provides you with what you need. It's kind of like an adaptogen effect. But raw cacao has some amazing nutrients and minerals and vitamins in it, where it effectively serves as a really good nootropic as well. And it allowed me, and for the longest time I wouldn't take it. My wife would take it, I wouldn't. But then I made it myself in my own style, which I'll explain in a minute because you don't want to denature it. And I found that it grounded me. It brought me right into the now. I was able to just methodically go through work, somewhat difficult, tedious work behind the computer. So I definitely recommend raw cacao. Now, the brand that we use is Keith's Cacao. Just Google it. It should come up. Keith's Cacao. And the way you want to make it, you will need a stick blender. Okay. Well, a larger blender to break off the big pieces. And then, so you break it up into smaller pieces. Well, let me quickly give you the process. Chop up on a chopping block, half a block of Keith's cacao into smaller pieces, put it in a large blender, pulse it, hit the pulse button a couple of times to where it's broken up, but not necessarily fine powder. Then you put it 3 heaped tablespoons in a large mug with a little bit of warm water. Okay, so mix a bit of room temperature distilled water with a bit of boiled water, only about so deep of water. Put in the 3 tablespoons, a pinch of salt. Then you put the stick blender in there, blend it really fine now. And then you pour, hot milk. I use goat's milk because it's a little easier on the stomach. Monk fruit sweetener, I'd recommend, as opposed to sugar or agave or maple syrup, because obviously they're not very healthy. So monk fruit liquid form on Amazon. You can get that from Amazon. You pour, I don't know, I think it's 1/4 teaspoon. Well, pour to taste as far as that monk fruit is concerned, and stir. And it's very nutritious. It does seem to help the brain. Very grounding, brings you into the now. Calms and soothes any volatile energies or emotions, procrastination type emotions, and you're just able to methodically do things. And so I have that 5 days a week, and the coffee twice a week. So give that a go. It's well worth it. Getting into that habit, very well worth it. Okay, let me just finish up here. Just wondering with regards to the grounding audio from Patreon, It is a little hard to visualize the description. Is it like basically a golden rope that has crisscrosses around Gaia's core? You don't have to be that precise. You can do whatever way it sort of quote unquote comes to you. In other words, the way your higher self or higher aspects show it to you. Again, it's more of a case of being that detached witness, and you kind of make up your own rules in terms of whether you see the rope itself loop around across a grid line. It looks like a cross beam, okay, on a construction site or a ceiling, loop around that. Or what I visualized, what always naturally came to me was, the smaller strings within a rope at the end, they sort of just unwind and undo themselves. And then they wrap around a cross beam, a golden cross beam within some grid line of Gaia's inner core. And they wrap around that. And then you give it or visualize the rope tugging itself, so it's tight. And then other end, all right, your coccyx bone, you just see the rope untwine where the smaller strings are sort of open, and then they wrap around your coccyx bone and tighten. You visualize a kind of a tug, or give it a bit of a tug, whatever, that does it. All right. And it happens sort of quickly. It's not a thing you really sort of labor at per se. It generally doesn't work that way. So yeah. So it doesn't have to have crisscrosses around Gaia's core per se. You can just use that method on some horizontal grid line, one of the smaller grid lines of Gaia's core. Okay. Thank you, Jim. That brings me more clarity on how to proceed. You're welcome. I'm glad it does, Miguel, because, yeah, you certainly seem to be some umbrella program within the MyLabs system. Probably SSP, possibly even Super Soldier, Decreeing Violet Flame at this point will help to transmute the entities and experiences. Yes. Try to visualize it as well. And Violet Flame is more of a broad sweep kind of thing, which is good for grubs and low-level and medium-level entities. Some of the high-level ones, which sometimes it is, they need a specific focus. So use the how to transmute on the fly 5-minute audio method, which I'm sure you've done many times by now for those ones. Okay. Or a soul retrieval will be more effective, or both. Well, in terms of all the things that you've spoke about and revealed in this Q&A, those do require soul fragment retrieval. And yeah, do a bit of transmuting a bit before or maybe even after the soul fragment retrieval. So, transmuting is more for, on the fly kind of situation, or when you're not feeling right. Soul fragment retrieval is when something is clearly up and the not feeling right doesn't seem to go away, no matter how much entity transmutation you do. That's when you know for sure you got a soul fragment retrieval issue. Okay. So, all right. Hope that helped everybody. Good to see you all again. And very good questions as always. Okay. You'll have a much clearer picture on what to do now. And, just be sure to act on it. Don't let any resistance stop you. because quite often, even when you got no idea what soul fragment retrieval you need to do and with the teams for half an hour, even leading up to that, as you build up a realization that you need to do a soul fragment retrieval, the boogies around that soul fragment already start feeling the sting of the light of your consciousness even hours before you go up. So they start to resist. Okay. So don't fall for it. Follow the tips and recommendations on how to make sure you go up there. Believe me, it is so well worth it. It is extremely empowering and liberating. Okay. And you can do it. Otherwise it's very hard to go up in personal timelines, and you have to wait for the collective timeline to go up, and obviously that's a lot more slow and cumbersome, which is understandable, as far as the collective timeline is concerned. And Juan 07 said it best, it's like steering an extremely massive ocean liner. You really got to watch it and take it easy and be careful, otherwise you do end up running aground on the rocky outcrop or whatever of a shoreline, and now you're in real big trouble. He used that very accurate analogy when it comes to the effort involved in raising the collective timeline. But yours, you got total control over that, pretty much. Okay, so take advantage of that. Appreciate that fact. Okay, thank you, Jim. We'll try the grounding description that you just mentioned again. Thank you again for explaining and answering our questions. You're welcome, Melody. And again, it was all wonderful seeing you all here. And yep, go for it. I'll send this recording for you to listen to tomorrow again, perhaps, and really let these tried and true tools and practices to sort of sink in better and deeper, to get a finer appreciation of how things work and get liberated and raise your timeline. So go for it. So I will thank you, Zoe, and I will see you all again in 2 weeks. Although I think we have a rather critical solstice mass meditation in 2 weeks or thereabouts. Oh, no, that's fine. You shouldn't interrupt. It's on a Wednesday. But there's a new moon at about the same period. I just thought I'd mention that in case of a possible 1 week delay in the next Q&A. But other than that, it looks like it should still go ahead. So I'll see you all in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, do listen to this recording. And good on you to everybody, okay, for really having the smarts and the sense to be on this call or listen to the recording. It obviously makes a big difference. Because the more you listen to these recordings or live Q&As, the more, it sinks in better. You get it better. The mind gets it better, and really takes advantage of these profound tools better, with more certainty and effectiveness. And well done, everybody. I will see you all in 2 weeks. This is Jim Tortsakis of Timeline Jumping Q&A Support. Go for it, Harold. I know you can do it. In spite of the past. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. See you all soon. Wonderful seeing you all.